to build their software to partner with them to help them overcome product challenges. This year, we, as a side project, which we're subsequently spinning out into a new company, we announced Orchestra, as Paddy says, a cloud computing platform for PHP. And we've seen some good success with that. We're very happy with how that goes. We're involved in an iPad user app called Flood with the backend for that. And something else we're involved in is these guys, Renfrew, they're helping landlords and property managers get to grips with old tenants who don't pay rent on time. Something that's really close to my heart as a Dubliner, as a developer, is the community that we have here in Dublin and in Ireland. And something that if I have the opportunity now to encourage people, I would say if you have a chance to get involved in a community event or activity, participate in it, or to organise one around whatever your particular discipline is, if it's digital media, if it's 3D, if it's whatever, social media, be social, organise or participate, because as an industry in general, we're pretty much substanceless without our community. So with that in mind, it's like a core belief of mine. I've organised a couple of events. With my friend Paul Campbell, I organised FunConf. Last year we basically rounded up 70 geeks, put them onto 2 party buses and drove around the country and had a good old time. This year we're doing the same thing but different. We've actually rented out a castle for the weekend and this morning, and we've got 80 people coming along to that. We've got CTO of Amazon is joining us, and the founders of GitHub. Actually GitHub are sending 15 people over, which is crazy. If you want to take down GitHub the weekend of 23rd and 25th of September, that's the time to do it, because they'll be pretty pissed. I organise a monthly developer meetup called Put Standards. And Put Standards is just about getting developers in the room together and have beers and share stories and to really talk about what fuels them apart from beer. And finally, another community event that I'm involved in is Whiskey March. Whiskey March, you might notice a trend developing here. Developers like their beer. And Whiskey March is a pub crawl in San Francisco. And I ran 3 of them over there, and basically I went over the first time over there. I wanted to get in touch with the developer community in the same way that I've been in touch with them here in Dublin, and I figured the best way to do that is to organise a pub crawl. So I made a website for it called the Whiskey March, and over the course of a few days, 109 people sat through Twitter to go along to it, and it's just ridiculously easy to connect to a foreign community when there's alcohol involved. So to actually talk, this is just to actually get to my talk. Can I just see a show of hands how many people are either founders of a startup or are working for a startup or maybe want to be in a startup? Alright, that's good. That's great. So this is for you guys. When you're in a startup, you're really focused on the job and you're really focused on solving a particular problem. You're really you just have blinkers on, and it's very hard to actually consider a world outside your particular startup. And it occurred to me a couple of months ago that there could be lessons that we could learn from looking at other industries that also, they're in the process of making money through selling a product. So I landed on, it occurred to me that, as Paddy said earlier on, that being in a startup is a lot like being in a band. So the title of my talk is being in a startup is a lot like being in a band, and like, can we learn from that OMG lol smiley face? Excuse me. So once I kind of picked up a couple of parallels between the two, I started to think about it more, and over the course of a few weeks I started to flesh the idea out. So what I'm presenting here is basically the geeks versus the rock stars. So you have, on purpose I've gone for, if you look on the left hand side, I've gone for the founders of the biggest tech companies in the world. And on the right I've gone for people who have been pioneers or innovators in their particular craft and have gone on to highly influence people. Keyboard Cat gets a particular look in because, well, he's awesome. So I'm going to talk through the various stages of, let's say, the first 2 years of a startup and how that's just like being in a band that really wants to make it big. Your motivations in both cases are pretty much the same. You want to make lots of cash, or you want to be famous, or you want to solve, in the case of a startup, you want to solve a particular problem that you're really passionate about. In the case of being in a band, what you're really passionate about is making music and sharing that music with the world. So you've got founders in both cases. You've got computer geeks on one side, and you've got music geeks on the other. These are guys who obsess about instruments, they obsess about lyrics. They have a back catalogue going back since they were kids, and they have teammates, and basically a lot of startups actually are formed by developers who have worked together in the past, or their friends or whatever. And same goes for bands. A lot of bands grew up together, or members of bands grew up together, or they knew each other from college or high school or whatever. First goal of every startup that's doing a product is that you want to make a product demo to show it to the world, and with a band, it's demo tape. You're basically bringing people together to create something to share with the world. Of course, you've got startup competitions. This is how you initially get the word out about what you're doing. And in the band world, you got that with bands. And once you've got get past that stage, your goal is to get beta users, of course. And well, whatever the music equivalent of beta users, I'd put hipsters, but I couldn't think of a proper word. But pretty much, you get where I'm going. So then you've got growing pains once you've decided on what the product is and how you're going to actually implement it. You've got lots of other problems that come along then. So you're going to be dealing with code. On the band side of things, you're going to be writing melodies. You're going to be using frameworks. You're going to be using instruments. You're going to, obviously, if you're a startup and you haven't got funding, you're going to try and bootstrap and be as frugal with your spending as possible. And you've got a bedroom studio if you're a musician. It's very easy to get your recordings out to the world these days. Just a couple of laptops, stick it up on SoundCloud or something like that. So, but the goal of every startup is that you want to innovate. Unless you're one of these copycat startups, then you're like a boy band. But if you're going to really, I put these guys up here at the top because there's something to aim for. These are guys who may not have had original ideas. Certainly in the case of Facebook and Google, they didn't have original ideas. The search engines and social networks were out there. They saw ways that they could innovate on it and they could improve on it, and they could create a much better product. And on the band side of things, it's, you got to push boundaries or whatever. So people say about startups that are actually, the hot startup, whatever, they've got a vision and they're really dedicated to going at it. And same with bands, they have sound. These are things that appeal to the end user or the music fan or whatever. So pivot. It's something that everybody's going to have to do if they don't have vision, or if their vision turns out not to be true. It's one of those words that kind of pissed me off. I heard somebody on Twitter recently saying, we've pivoted so many times that we started back up, or we're back where we started off. And so, I think it's like a river. You need to pick your path. You're not going to flow straight to the sea. You got to pick the right course, and that's really what a pivot is about, or iteration, or agile, or whatever you want to call it. And on the band side of things, it's reinvent. They got to reinvent themselves if they have the difficult second album.